Well, it's disgusting. I mean, it's enough to put you off your food.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thanks to all of the subscribers and for people who comment, people who talk to me off YouTube about the videos. Huge thanks to all that. And today is a book review. It's a review of a book that's been around BookTube for quite a while recently. It was on my radar because of how much people talk about it. It came out in 2017 in Argentina, but then there was a translation done for English readers in 2020. So I think that's why over the last year or so it's kind of spreading through BookTube and lots of people are reading it. It started off being mentioned in a lot of these 10 most disturbing books I've ever read, the most disturbing book I've ever read, or just, people who just go through lots of disturbing books. And it is definitely disturbing. It's Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. So, as I said, an Argentinian author. So this is a translated novel. And yeah, I thought it was quite unique. I liked it. And I found it... Well, I'll talk about what it's about, and then I'll talk about how I found the reading experience and what I liked about it. And then just at the end, there's something I think I could criticise it for, which I'll finish with. So this is it's described as a dystopian novel, and it's a very specific dystopia. So it's got a very clear message in the book. So some dystopian novels have got lots of... I mean, if you look at 1984 covers so many different areas, and it's a very clear political dystopia where it's channeling its radar on many different facets of society. Freedom, ideas about war, ideas about our speech, ideas about how much you're loyal to your government, the communication between government and people, all sorts of things are covered in 1984, tons and tons of stuff, which is why it's a masterpiece, to be fair. And this is different because if I'd have read this, I would have eventually come to the conclusion that it was a dystopia, but I don't think it's that obvious that it's a dystopia because it's such a focused point it's trying to make. So it's in the near future. You can tell that most of society in this is what we're familiar with, but what is not familiar is the general conceit, and that is that there's been this virus that's affected animals, and we can't... They're too dangerous to eat. We can't eat them anymore, and the meat industry is still a big thing, and the government has sanctioned institutionalized cannibalism, basically. So what is now considered meat can't be animals, and now it's special meat, which is what it's called in the book, which is humans. So humans are farmed, humans are slaughtered and butchered and given to the public, and the public very acceptingly eat humans because eating meat hasn't been sort of eradicated from our society. So that's a really important conceit because it runs through the whole book. It's the whole point of the book. It's, in general, I might say this again later on, but in general it's a comment on the meat industry and the farming industry, factory farming industry, really. So so that's the point, that's the plot, that's kind of a lot of the world building, with some detail in between about how that works. And it focuses on a character called Marcus, who is quite a well-respected supervisor at a meat processing plant. Again, a very respected processing plant. And it basically goes through his work. At the beginning, the first sort of 50, 60 pages, it sets the world up. It's not a very long book, by the way. It's only like 220 pages or something. But the first bit of it is kind of setting it all up, and you're looking at it through Marcus's perspective. And he's quite a dispassionate character. There are moments in the book where you can see that he's got a lot of empathy, and there's a very emotional bit in one particular part of the book, which is quite... actually, there's one bit where he becomes quite energized, but for a lot of it he's not. And there is a bit where it's not so much energized, but he has got a little bit more sort of an emotional moment a couple of times through the book as well. But he's quite a dispassionate character. He's quite numb, I think. My summing up of him, when I was thinking about doing this video, I was thinking he is empathetic with certain situations, and when I talk about the characters in a minute, there's a couple of characters he's got feelings for, either negative or positive. But I think his reaction to the situation with the meat, he's become numb to that, I think. So he's not. He's described as someone who's kind of witnessing it and is clearly a very willing participant, very respected, willing to participant. But I think he's not. He's not that disgusted by it. He is disgusted by certain aspects of it, but he's not turned off it to the point of not doing it and not being present when this stuff's happening. So, special meat is human meat, and in the way that we call pigs pork and cows beef, humans are called heads. So, if it's a human that's going to be eaten, they're called heads. And there are lots and lots of gory and brutal and violent and really, really ugly, grim moments in this book. There's a really big section towards the beginning, which is probably the hardest thing to read, when it's talking about the whole processing process, the butchering process, the way that the head, the human, goes from being a naked, alive, mute, because they cut the tongue out, human, to it being for sale at the butcher shop. So the whole process is gone through as he gets given this tour. And that's really disgusting part of the book. And when I read that, I was like, okay, this is going to be hard work. But a lot of the book is not as in your face as that, but there are many moments where it is. If you think this book is going to just disgust you, then don't read it. But if you think it's something that you think you could handle, then I think it's good. So there are some people putting up reviews that have been reaction to positive reviews, saying they don't get it, and their points are interesting. I think it is a good book though, and it really did. I found it quite gripping as well, which is odd because I didn't really like the writing style straight away. I didn't like the cold tone of the writing, and I would say that I think I would have preferred it if it was a little bit more emotional or emotive in its writing. That's postman. So I think that might have been more effective, but I think the reason why the writer has chosen to write it like this is because it's trying to give not indifference, but something that hasn't got an opinion, not an opinionated, like a flag waving kind of thing, which I think is good because obviously it's a very important point it's making. It's a very strong point it's making. The world building aspect of it, the dystopian aspect of it, is clearly making a big point about the factory farming and all that. So if it was really driven home with a very emotive language and emotive writing style, I think some people would be put off. So I do think that's why they do it. But then for me, it was longer for me to get into it because of that. Also, what really took me a while to get used to was it's in the present tense. I don't read books with. I can't even remember the last time I've read something that's written in the present tense, and that's just really weird. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to know another example. I can't even think of another example when the book was written in present tense. So that took me a while to get used to. So the themes in the book are pretty much focused on factory farming and the meat industry, but there are some other aspects of it, some that could have been developed more, and some that you could see that they just wanted to leave it there and just do little nods to it. So there was a class aspect at one point, because there was a bit about just over halfway through, where Marcus was in the same room as these hunters, and it was like about celebrities choosing to pay off their debts by being hunted, and then that if they got caught, clearly they'd be eaten, and there was more prestige in eating a celebrity, and there's also an aspect of there's like a capitalist comment, very slight one, about certain meats being more sought after if the process of killing them was different, and they were tastier, all that kind of stuff. Which is, you can obviously see parallels with the meat industry as well with that. So those kind of things were mentioned, but it was very small. I think they could have been more developed, and there was also a moment where there was a reference to race being an issue as well in this society, but that had been built up with this new attitude to meat. There was references to black meat, but it was really quick. It was very slight. I wasn't really sure. I assumed it was going to be developed a little bit more, and then it wasn't. So it was like something that could have been used more, but I don't think that's what she's trying to do, which is fine. So it's I think it's definitely focused on those main issues. It only touches class a little bit, doesn't really do much with race, and it could have done. And I think even though the main head that's in the story, the main body that's going to get eaten, is a woman, there are definitely men that are eaten as well, and I don't think it's necessarily a sexist approach, but a big part of the story is about it's almost like, it feels a bit like a kidnapping, because it's a body that's been given to Marcus, and he's just keeping her. And that obviously develops. That's a big part of the story, so I'm not going to spoil it. But it's got that sort of parallel with the kidnapping. But I don't think it makes the book sexist, which someone has accused it of, because I think there are other parts of the book where men are butchered, killed, murdered, and the point is that the Marcus having this woman in his house develops the plot. The plot comes from there. So it's got a bit of world building at the beginning, and then he gets given this head, which is not head, by the way. It sounds a bit odd. It's this woman, and then the plot develops from there. So I think the characterization is really interesting, because even though he's very dispassionate and cold and numb, as I say, to the dystopian aspects of the book, there are these relationships he has that are the other parts of the plot in the book. So he's got this very ill father who's in it a fair bit, or is in the text a lot. It's not really, the character isn't in it a lot, but the character is in the text a lot, if you know what I mean. He's not present in it a lot, but Marcus thinks about him a lot, and a lot of his situation is because of his father. His father was in the slaughtering industry before, and he's sort of taken over from him, but he's very ill, and that's a sort of he feels there's some of the emotional parts of the book are because of his thoughts about his father, and there's a big bit at the end that I won't spoil it, but there's a big chunk at the end which is reflective of that as well, and wrapped up in his relationship with his sister. And his relationship with his sister is probably the strongest relationship in the book, and it's probably the best part of the characterization in the book, and when you really see Marcus as a real fleshed out person. And she's written quite well. I think that there's a real person there. You can really see what kind of person she is. So I think that's the best relationship in the book, the relationship between Marcus and his sister, Cecilia. So either Celia or Cecilia. And he's also got this relationship with his ex-wife. And his ex-wife, the relationship with his ex-wife is a bit odd. I think that could have been developed more. And when it comes into play right at the end of the book, it's very strange. It seems like they're both behaving differently than you would expect them to. So I I'm not going to spoil it by saying what the ending is, but I will say the ending is very unexpected. It's almost at odds of the rest of the book. It's very sudden. It works, but it's definitely unexpected. Someone said on a comment on another video that they thought it's predictable. I don't think it's predictable. I think they're pretending, but it's an interesting choice, and it kind of, I think it's there to drive home the overall message of the book, which is fine, but all the characterization that had happened before seems to be going against that. So anyway, ish, yeah, it doesn't really go against it. I don't know. I still feel like it's not. It just wasn't expected, I guess, and it's not the ending I would have done. But then, you know, I don't like it when people say, I didn't like this ending because I would have written it differently. Clearly, I didn't write it, so it's not about what I would have written. But it just comes out of nowhere, I think, a little bit. So, anyway, I like the book. I thought there was a couple of things that could have been developed more, but it's grim. It's grim reading. So if you're someone that doesn't want to read loads of gore and people being butchered horribly and treated badly, like that kind of visualization of utter dehumanization and some of the violence that's in the book, really, really graphic, horrible violence, then it wouldn't be for you. But if you think you can handle that sort of stuff and you're kind of intrigued by the plot, it is a good book, and I think, and it's interesting, and I think it's quite different. So there we go. That's what I thought about Tender as Flesh. I read this for Horror Mayhem. So I've been reading short stories. This is the first novel I've read for Horror Mayhem. It's only, as I said, it's a short one. It's only 220 pages, so it fits in with the remit. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. I'm going to carry on reading the short stories I've been reading as well. But if I get to another novel, I thought I was going to read The Langoliers, a novella. It's quite long, actually. It's about 300 and something pages, so I don't know if I will read that for Horror Mayhem. But anyway, this was read for Horror Mayhem, and it's definitely horrific, but it's not horror in a conventional kind of supernatural beasties kind of serial killer kind of way. It's the horror is in the society that's been created, and basically how everyone seems to be completely complicit in the evils, if you like, of the factory farming industry implanted into the humans that are being murdered. I mean, from a personal point of view, I should probably say from a personal, I was a vegetarian for a while. I did try to be vegetarian. I couldn't do it for long. I have absolute empathy, sympathy with anybody that becomes a vegetarian or a vegan for political reasons, and I think it's absolutely horrific the way we treat animals. And I think it's important. This message is important. And if we were brave enough, I don't know. If we could change the rules for it, it'd be brilliant. Anyway, that's the door. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.